right, just a few minutes here, everybody. Let me know if you're signed in here. These are live streams. I know that they get turned into videos and put on the channel a little bit later, but they are live streams here. We do everything live, so making sure everything works here. We only have a few lights on the mic. Should be good to go. Hope you all are here. I don't see it on the page myself, but let's make sure. All right. Hey, LC. All right. Live is going right now. Awesome. Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. Today is August 27th, the year of our Lord 2024. We find ourselves in the middle of, a huge storm around the world. This stuff is really brewing everywhere. We have multiple things to check on tonight. I'm going to try to deep dive. So I try as best I can to check the chat while we're going through this, but I've got an entire sheet of information I want to get to y'all here this evening, because I think that what we're looking at right now around the world is really I don't even know if you can call it a battle. It's more of a war. Hey, Tim. Hey, how you doing? Christine, Tina, hey, everybody. Thank you guys for commenting. Let me know this thing's live, because sometimes it's hard to see. I just have the screen in front of me. But we're going to run through a lot of things tonight. Financially, a lot of information coming out, a lot of information coming about the election. And of course, that's a big topic, but I've been talking around here for quite some time saying, one fear I have no fear that the majority of Americans will vote for Donald Trump. I think that's a logical choice. I think that most people are tired of being tired. I think people are tired of inflation. They're tired of these economic problems. They're tired of all these other things. But at the same time, we deal with an enemy that doesn't like to play fair, and the cheating is happening. So I've been talking about this for many years now, where we find ourselves in this punch counter punch environment. And that's what a war is. There's an offensive and a defensive move. There's a punch and a counter punch. And there's a lot of punch counter punch happening right now in the election space with laws and voter rolls and these very important things. In 2020, I would bet, and I have no way of knowing this, but I would bet that Trump got at least 55% of the vote. That would just be my guess, having talked to people. I've, of course, talked to a lot of people who voted for Biden and now regret it and stuff like that. But a lot of stuff to cover there. A lot of stuff to cover in health today. More ridiculousness. It must be Marxist season, because there's all kinds of new strains of viruses going around, and a very pressing issue I'm going to go into there. I'm going to go into a little bit about Germany today. I know we did some Germany a video in Germany on Saturday, old Germany. New Germany is being used basically as a money laundering operation for around the world, and I don't think people realize that. So is the Ukraine. That are being used for money laundering all around the world. And we're going to go through the real estate market and a little bit about, our markets as well, because our markets are very convoluted. They're very, very off balance. I said this a while back. It's kind of like the market is kind of like a medicine ball balancing on a baseball bat. It just takes a half mile an hour wind to push it over. But that doesn't mean that it'll fall over. So we're going to hop into that and some of the interesting developments we're seeing around the world with like Pavel Durov and Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg and some of the other things that are happening. There's just a lot happening in this country right now that I want to break down. This is what I do. I just try to break down things for everybody. This is the way my brain works. I take in information all day long. I just keep taking it in. And usually at the end of the night, I try to let as much information develop as possible. But by the end of the night, I always try to organize things and go, well, this is important. That's important. That's important. Was funny, or, all kinds of funny stuff happening. By the way, all kinds of revival happening around the world. Ohio State. Kids are getting baptized at school. I mean, just amazing things are happening. But of course, the enemy doesn't want you to see that. They want you to be trapped in the darkness and never really view the beauty of the world, because the world is incredibly beautiful. People are beautiful inside in their hearts. They may not act that way openly and outwardly in interactions with you, but they certainly are. People all want to be good. I believe all people want to be good. Some people will change their morals for money or for, pride, or lots of other things that do that. VIX. Yeah, I have a lot of people asking about the VIX. I'll definitely go through the VIX here tonight. But let's get started. Let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to the Rice Report. A quick summary of what we're going to do. Just went through that. So let's hop into the information and get to it, because I have about an hour tonight. That's really all I have. My two kids are getting ready for bed. They go to bed at 10. So it gives me about an hour and 15 minutes maximum here tonight. But of course, they're my children, so I'd love to see them this evening. I think the big thing to kick off today is that the dollar is now at 100.3. So if you don't understand how the DXY works, it basically measures the US dollar versus all other currencies around the world. And right now we're looking at a 200-day low. So since 2023, this is the lowest the dollar's been in 200 days. It is now consecutively below its daily moving average. This is an important thing to look at. It shows a weakening dollar. And a weakening dollar, normally with a weakening dollar, what would happen is you would raise rates. Because the way that the Federal Reserve works, or these corrupt central bank loan sharks, the way they work is as soon as the money starts to lose value, they raise interest and pull money out of the market so that it reduces the amount in circulation. So inflation is inflating the circulation, and it's called quantitative easing. It's a fancy way of saying stealing from you. Quantitative tightening, which is another fancy way of saying stealing from you, is they raise the rates on what you have to pay back, what everyone pays back. So that actually pulls money out of circulation. Normally, when the dollar is losing value, and it's still at 100, so it's still 0.3 higher than the next highest currency in the world. So I know there's a lot of panic sellers out there, and eventually the dollar will go through a punishment period that is developing with BRICS and some of these other nations, at least preemptively. They're probably 2.5 years away, maybe 3 years away from a currency out there. So there's still some time. I don't really believe in panic. I believe in preparation. And preparing for those moments, you can start way in advance and really profit from these types of times. Or you can sit back and react, and generally reaction doesn't do any good for your retirement or for your family. But the dollar at 100.3 right now is a weakening dollar at a period in time where we're most certainly going to see rate cuts. So when the dollar is losing value and they begin to cut rates, they begin to print more money. So inflation is definitely coming back. It's going to rage back. And I thought of a new term for the CPI because a gentleman out there that I follow some guys like Mark Moss, I think is great. I think James Lavish is a phenomenal, very modern economist, brilliant mind. I forget which one, but somebody tweeted it out today that said the CPI is a useless index. And I said what the CPI should be called right now is the consumer PSYOP indicator. So how often can you PSYOP the consumer into believing that things aren't as bad as they actually are? And that's essentially what it's become. So I would expect inflation to go up right around October, right before the election. So before the election, normally before an election, things are great in the market. You have a 15-20% return in the stock market, which we're seeing because the Dow hit an all-time high yesterday, intraday high. So it didn't close at its all-time high, but it did hit its highest number in history yesterday, which is an oxymoron to the world. But I'm certain of this happening because, number one, Powell has come out and said, the seasons have changed. It's now time for us to look into rate cuts. And rate cuts generally stimulate the economy. They don't actually do much for the market, but they do stimulate the economy. That's when people start to pull money out of the stock market and start businesses or, buy new houses or things like that. So it's a challenging time to prepare for. But as long as you know what's happening, that's why I do this. I don't make a penny off this stuff. Somebody told me I was YouTube verified. I just looked. I don't even know what that means. Maybe I can make a couple pennies at some point. I'll probably give it to charity. I really could care less. If I trusted a charity, maybe I'll just give it to actual homeless people and people who need it. However, I'm certain of this event happening, not just because Powell is saying it, because Powell has said this before. He also said he wasn't going to raise rates, and he raised rates. The bottom line is you cannot trust any politician. The only politician I've ever seen in my entire life who's kept their word is Donald Trump, who continually gets called a liar. So, this is the world that we live in. This is the chaos that we live in. But I'm certain of rates going down for one reason: debt payment. The debt payment right now for this nation, without including $100 billion payment from banks that have to go to banks, because we continually bail out banks. People don't realize this, but there's a daily treasury buyback, the reverse repo market. Everything is rigged where they don't have to formally go in front of the nation and go on the Wall Street Journal and say, we're bailing out the banks. They're bailing out the banks by allowing them to off-put their treasuries for liquidity, for cash, and then buy them back at a later date. We really do live in a Ponzi scheme. Like, we live in the most corrupt economic structure imaginable. And I'd love to say it's always been this way because this is the intention at the end of a cycle, at the end of a turning. But at the beginning of the turning, things were actually fine until, our communist president, Roosevelt, in 1933, stole everyone's gold. People forget that they confiscated all of our gold. However, the debt payment in this country right now, $861 billion projected payment. That's $961 billion with the bank payments. That is 2 times, it has doubled. That has literally doubled in the last 2 years. And I'll explain to you how that happens. They print more money, that creates inflation. The rates have been really low. We've been in a zero interest rate environment for 15 years. And now we have higher interest rate. We actually have normal interest rates in the fives. That's traditionally, historically normal. However, they printed all this money. So it increased inflation. It put a lot of money in circulation. Every time they print money, they're borrowing it from the criminals at the Federal Reserve, and they are criminals. These are loan sharks. They're loaning money to this nation that you pay back. And in the end, what happened is they lent out all this money. About 48% of all dollars in circulation have been printed in the last 7 years. So an incredible amount of borrowing from the Federal Reserve. At the same time, the Federal Reserve jacked up the rates from 0 to 5%. So what that does, just like if you sold your house in 2023 and you bought another one in 2024, you might have bought the same house for the same value. You'd have gotten less house and you'd have a higher mortgage because the mortgage rates are higher. The same thing happens to a corrupt government who borrows from criminals and allows us to pay them back for all their frivolous spending. So not only have they printed more money, which is borrowed from the Fed, they've also raised interest rates. So the interest rate payment right now is almost $1 trillion. That's $1 trillion. It's 1/4 of all tax revenues will go to pay back just interest, not lowering the principal. This coalesces basically with a consumer debt, which is $1.14 trillion in consumer debt, primarily credit card debt at 24%. That was a manageable number for America. When it was a 12% interest rate at 24%, you're doubling your monthly payment, making it more expensive and basically guaranteeing you will never get out of the principal that you've borrowed. So the government is in that same situation and an interest payment is coming up. So we have this big interest payment. If they lower rates right before the election, they'll be able to say that they saved, that Biden and Harris will be able to say they saved this nation billions of dollars by lowering rates. This is the ridiculousness of America. You have to understand the scam and the hustle in order to do the right thing for yourself. And this is how they scam and hustle the American people. They will use this lowering of rates, which is going to crash markets and destroy lots of things, but they'll use it as a political ploy to get more votes to say, look what we did. We saved $200 billion on interest rate payments because we negotiated with the Federal Reserve. No nation in the world should ever have to negotiate with a private bank for their own sovereignty. That's really the best way to think of it. The Fed needs to be erased. All central banks need to be removed. This is one of the main importance of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, even gold-backed money, which has, by the way, failed every single time in human history. It has failed. We actually never really had a gold-backed dollar. We had legal gold tender and fractionalized gold backing on the dollar, which over time gets reduced until you're in complete fiat because you have a central bank who makes the rules. So this debt payment, exceptionally high. The Bloomberg Treasury Total Return Fund, which is over a 100-year-old fund that manages bond portfolios, bond ladders, they're down 11% since 2020. Bonds are supposed to be safe. This total return, it certainly has some lower caliber bonds in that fund that are lesser rating for a higher return, but a bulk of the bonds in that fund are treasuries. And that is down 11%. That is the worst performance over a 4-year period in 100 years. That's primarily based on the treasury. We also have a record high for global liquidity. So global liquidity right now is $95 trillion. And this is going to go hand in hand with how top heavy the S&P 500, the market is. Again, it's a medicine ball balancing on a baseball bat. The top heavy S&P right now, 38% of the S&P value is made up by 10 stocks. So 10 stocks are 38% of the S&P 500 value. This is a tremendously overweighted number. In 2020, when things were bad, right? We were in a literal global black swan event. That number was only 25%. So the top 10 stocks have made a fortune. This is how money is transferred, where people think it's a fair system and rich people are just smarter than you are. They're not. They know what's coming. They put their money in these companies and it all kind of washes hand in hand forever. Now, the Dallas Federal Reserve came out today with a barn burner of a statement. And this is very unusual for a regional Federal Reserve to go against the Federal Reserve itself. Normally, it's nothing more than a big crony system. But I think even people who work at these local feds, there's the Dallas Fed, the Philadelphia, St. Louis, New York, there's all kinds of regional feds. Most of them are owned by JP Morgan at the end of the day. That's the reality. But the Dallas Fed, the head of the correspondent for the Dallas Fed came out and said, I know that the media and the Federal Reserve keeps telling us that interest rates and inflation are under control and everything is fine. But in our construction and design division, which is I'm in Texas, there is a ton of building that's happening here. You can't, where I live anyway, you can't look at any horizon around here without seeing a crane. You can't drive down a street without seeing construction. There's apartment complexes, homes, professional buildings, warehouses. They just built huge warehouses right behind us. There is just construction everywhere in Texas because we've had an influx of 700,000 people from various blue states escaping communism to come to sovereignty. And even here, it's not, we're definitely more free than the blue states. I came from one. And there's still problems here for sure, but we're working on it, and that's the good thing. But the correspondent for the Federal Reserve in Dallas today came out and said, basically, you can tell us all day long that inflation is dropping, but that's certainly not what we see. They quoted something that I can verify because I wanted to get a new front door for my house. I've never bought a front door for my house ever before. We had a guy come to our house. He gave us a great presentation, a nice man. I know he has my podcast link, so if you're on here, I forgot your name, but you were very nice, very good salesman. But he came here and said, wow, that's a heck of a door in that book right there. I think I'd like to put that one on my house. And he told me it was $10,900 for a door, for some metal and wood. Now, the Dallas Federal Reserve came out and verified this. They said, listen, in 2020, a new door for a new home would cost $3,000. Now it's an average of $10,000 for a new door. There's less competition. Pay attention to that. There are fewer local companies, and there is a very long wait time for transformers and generators. This is for the construction and design division. Now, when you hear less competition, that is the end game for communists. If you want to know how the economy is used against you, free people, to embed a communist structure for this nation, it is done by killing the small guy. It is done by eliminating the middleman, the small business, the meat and potato mom and pop shops that literally have made America from day one. They are getting squeezed out of the competition because of inflation and higher rates. They cannot borrow money for working capital. But what they are doing right now is they're going out of business and retiring early and selling off these companies to major conglomerates. I talked to somebody who owned a Harley Davidson franchise, and they said, well, or maybe it was John Deere, one of the two woke companies that Robbie Starbuck has been exposing. And by the way, Robbie Starbuck is doing a great job doing this. But I talked to one of them that owned a franchise, and I said, well, you're trying to retire. Why don't you sell? You know, I've got a friend in Tennessee that does this kind of stuff. I can introduce you. And he asked me questions. He said, no, I'm not looking for that. I want to sell this business for as much as I can to the biggest company I can. And it's not a new thing or a bad thing. However, when everyone sells their companies to the largest companies in the world, you end up with 15 BlackRocks and you have no freedom. So even the Dallas Federal Reserve came out today and said, we are seeing far less competition and far fewer local companies. Competition creates fairness in a market, period. Local companies create jobs. Small businesses, small to mid-sized businesses in this country create, I don't know the exact number, but it's approximately 68% of all jobs in this country come from non-major conglomerates. That number used to be 88% a few years ago. So you're watching these large monopolies, which antitrust laws are the only laws in this country from a business perspective that need to be focused on. I know they want to clamp down on crypto, they want to clamp down on this and create more restrictions and more regulations, but they do that at the behest of the monopolies. All these laws being created to restrict small, mid-size, and startup businesses. That is the heartbeat of America. That is how competition is created. That's how a fair market is run. And you are watching these major companies gobble up local mom and pop businesses, buying their client list, buying their materials, putting them out of business, and firing everyone who works there and keeping the best people and letting everybody else go. This is a major contributor to the impending unemployment doom in this nation. And that is something I'll talk about in just a moment. Because it comes from the trucking industry. I've talked about this ad nauseum. Very few people. I just saw Game of Trades on Twitter put an article out about the freight industry, and it was fantastic. That we are now at a 20-year low or 15-year low in freight or trucking unemployment. So truckers right now are having a hard time finding a job because, again, the small and mid-sized family trucking and freight companies are being put out of business by places like Amazon and BlackRock conglomerates. The same thing is happening there. I'll stress this over and over again because not enough people do. If there are no trucks, there is no grocery store. If there are no trucks, there are no products on shelves. And our truckers in this country, the Canadian trucker revolution opened up everyone's eyes as to how important these truckers are to an infrastructure of a nation. And our nation is now being completely destroyed from the inside out. There's no foreign enemy that's destroying this nation. It is absolutely Washington, D.C. and your local city councils, your local state boards. They are destroying this nation, and all of them are millionaires. Really think about that. Something like 94% of all people in Congress and the Senate are millionaires. I know that people like to say, well, they were successful in their career. That's not the case. They have 3, 4, 10, 20x to their wealth by serving the public. I thought public servants were supposed to be servants and not public billionaires. So the trucking industry is something you definitely need to watch out for. I will say this over. I say it all the time for people. I mean, there's never a bad time to have 30 days worth of food in your house, or 30 days worth of medicine, or 60 days, whatever you're comfortable with. I would definitely stock up. I'm not a doom and gloom person. I don't think the world's not going to end tomorrow and the stores aren't going to be empty tomorrow. I don't see that happening. It is the 27th. So if on August 28th, all the shelves are empty miraculously by tomorrow at closing day, then we're all SOL on that one. But I don't think that's going to happen. Now, the U.S. households right now, I just explained the dangers that occur with a top-heavy market, interest rates, federal spending, the interest rate payments that are not coming in from the government. They're coming in from our pockets. Households right now, the average American household has 57% of their allocation, their wealth, the money that they're investing for their kids' college fund, which you can pass on that. Let me save you some money. And the kids aren't going to learn anything in college till college has changed. Let them learn how to be an electrician and make 6 figures a year and be happy. Teach them to read books they don't teach in school, like Hayek and some of these other Austrian economists. They'll get a heck of a lot farther in life. However, households right now, 57% of their wealth is in the stock market. This is by far the highest allocation in history. The last time that we saw allocation this heavy into stocks was 2000, right before the bubble burst. And that was obviously not a good time. That's when I started managing money. So my first year in the money manager role was dealing with people who just lost half of their net worth in 2 or 3 months. And we could be coming across those times. We might not be. I heavily weight to the side that we will be. And I think that's a big thing to look for. The housing market's not any better. We're looking at statistically the largest bubble since 2006. The housing market right now, I get people who come to me all the time and ask me, hey, Eric, I'm going to buy a house. I try to help as many people as I can. Everybody knows I'm a money geek. So they'll come to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house. Should I? My answer is always no. Wait 18 months. If you wait till the end of 2025, you're going to see a better interest rate environment for your mortgage. You're going to see a lower price on the home, and you'll have a more affordable payment and be able to pay off the debt faster. And I think people are starting to realize this now. If you look at the inventory of existing homes in Florida, Texas, and even parts of Southern California, these are record-breaking numbers of people trying to sell a house who can't. And our numbers don't look very good right now. We're looking at 130-year average. We're now at, again, the worst numbers for housing bubble since 2006. And to make matters worse, we have not only, I grow tired of people saying the people who run this country are idiots. And I grow tired of hearing that because it's true. But, excuse me, but there's also some naivete to that. These people aren't stupid. These people have a mission to fulfill, and they are treasonous to this country. And no one is more treasonous than the entire political system of the state of California, which is why I, and along with 500,000 other people, don't live there anymore. The state of California today just passed AB 1840. AB 1840 passed today, making it now there's now a new budget in California. So this is a state who's about $20 billion in debt. But what they're going to do now is they're going to set aside hundreds of millions of dollars to give illegal aliens, illegal people who are criminals in this country, they're going to give them $150,000 or 20% of their payment to their home. So this isn't automatically $150,000 if they bought the $200,000 home in like Redding, California. If those still exist, they're probably $300,000 by now in way northern California. Call a $300,000 house. That's $60,000, 20% down payment. So whether it's $60,000 or $150,000, it doesn't matter. They're giving away your taxpayer money, which most of it comes from the Federal Reserve because they work in cahoots with the states. They are getting your money and they're taking it and they're giving it to illegal aliens so that they can buy a house while you can't afford yours. That's the reality of America right now. Whether you believe that or not, if you're on this chat, I'm assuming you believe that. This live, we're on live now. But if you're not and you're watching this for the first time, let me embed that to you. If you live in the state of California and you think you live in a free country, the state of California is giving illegal people in this country 20% down payments on their homes up to $150,000 while you can't buy groceries. Really think about that, because November 5th is right around the corner, and it is such an important election. It doesn't even matter what side of the fence you're on. It doesn't matter. There's only one side of the fence to vote for, and stuff like this really makes it very simple. Now, this economy isn't just hurting good people and small businesses and things like that. It's hurting all kinds of manufacturers around the world. And one of the funny stories, if you're on this and you drive a Rivian pickup truck, I'm not picking on you. I'm picking on that ugly truck that you're driving around, the electric pickup truck. One of the dumbest ideas that's ever existed. If you drive them in Texas, you should know that every person in an actual diesel pickup truck is laughing at you at the stoplight. But Rivian, who most people don't know who that is, I think they're the third largest EV manufacturer in the country. Their main manufacturing plant just burned down yesterday. And I don't find this to be a coincidence, because 2 weeks ago, they announced they were on the verge of bankruptcy. Now, this situation is sad. People are going to lose their job. No one was injured in the fire, which is fantastic. But somebody needs to be held accountable. If you or I owned a company and we said, you know what, we're a couple of weeks away from bankruptcy, and then all of a sudden there was a fire in our manufacturing center, we'd be being investigated before this video ended. Now, will the major shareholders of Rivian be held accountable, or at least, and I don't know if there's any wrongdoing, it could just be a fire. Electric cars just start on fire. They don't tell you that on the news, but electric batteries, they just start on fire from time to time. So that's definitely a possibility. It's just a normal fire. But when you're looking at a manufacturing center producing $80,000, $100,000 trucks and cars, there's a heck of a lot of insurance money tied up in that facility. And the major shareholders in Rivian are BlackRock, Amazon, Vanguard, T. Rowe Price, these big conglomerates who do nothing but buy up 10, 12% of every company that's, worth $500 million in the country, and they end up owning absolutely everything. So hopefully there'll be an investigation. Hopefully my paranoia is incorrect, and it was just a normal electric vehicle battery starting on fire. No one was hurt. I hope the people who work there are taken care of for their loss of wages, their loss of employment for this time. And I hope it gets rebuilt. And I actually honestly hope Rivian succeeds and produces great vehicles for this country, because at least, if nothing else, they're made here. And that's very important to me. I drive an American-made truck, and I think we all should drive American-made everything. So let's move on for finances. Let's move on to a foreign nation. There's a report that came out, and I'll give credit to Multipolar Market on Telegram, where I found this. 43% of all welfare in the nation of Germany is being paid out to illegal aliens. This is not just happening here. This is happening in every country in the world. The borders of Europe, who have been open for a decade. So what we're experiencing in America, and I'm not trying to downplay it because it's horrific, but what we're experiencing in America, England, Spain, Portugal, Germany, France, they've all had these open border policies for 10 years. If you go to Berlin, Miss Berlin or Miss Germany this past year was black. That doesn't jive in my head. I don't understand how that happens, but at least she was a woman. That's a good thing. Most Miss of a nation right now are actually former Misters. So at least I guess that's a win. But you're watching this radical change of, the native people of lands are being swarmed out. I've covered what's happening in the UK quite a bit. And then that is a horrifically sad event, but it's their problem at this point in time. And that's going to happen here in 4 to 5 years if we don't stop it today. And it'll probably happen in 4 to 5 years, whether we stop it now or not, with the amount of people who are actually already in this country committing crimes. In Chicago, they're giving illegals $15,000. I've verified that with 3 people. They're getting $15,000 a month. I think it's $180,000 a year for people who don't even belong here. So California is doing it, Illinois is doing it, everybody's doing it. J.B. Pritzker is awful, and if you're in Illinois, a formerly Chicago resident, you got to get that guy out. I don't know if you can. It's such a deeply embedded, corrupt system, and most of the Democratic votes come from Chicago because the rest of the state of Illinois is pretty much red. But hopefully that works out. Now, the Ukraine, here's another interesting story. Excuse me. So the Ukraine itself is a very interesting story because they came out, I don't purposely or not. I mean, some people say, oh, they forced them to say that. It's not really what I'm trying to do on this show, trying to reach normal people here. Nonetheless, about 6 months ago, the Ukrainian head of commerce came out and stated that there was a 10.8% increase in millionaires in Ukraine. I thought Ukraine was being devastated by war and they just constantly need money. Well, maybe we know why they need money now. Because a new report came out, this is also from Multipolar Market, which I've actually seen in 2 different places. Ukraine junk bonds. So these are bonds for gas companies, electric companies, big corporations that put out, a junk bond is basically a high risk bond. U.S. Treasury would be considered a very stable bond. You're going to put $100,000 in, get paid interest back, and you're going to get your $100,000 plus interest. A junk bond is different. It's risky. So normally you're going to put 100,000 in, you're going to get 15%, and you'll be lucky if you ever see that 100,000 again beyond some interest payments before the bonds collapse. That's how a junk bond generally works. But not Ukrainian junk bonds. No, no, no. Ukrainian junk bonds right now are the best investment in the world. Most people from the West and from England, the Europeans, what they're doing is they're buying these junk bonds from basically utility companies that when Ukraine gets new funding, specifically from the EU, we can't trace it back to American dollars yet, but I have absolutely no hesitation in saying that we're supporting this too. What's happening is they're using this funding coming in from the G7, the G20, America, all these other nations, and they're giving it to these electrical companies and utility companies, and then they're paying off the bonds with money from other countries. So American investors, Western investors, European investors, they're making 57, 73, 65%. And I don't think people understand how this works. So if I'm a struggling electric company or gas company and I'm devastated by war, what I'm going to do is I'm going to issue junk bonds and say, listen, guys, we're not in that good a shape, but I need your money. A bond is a loan. So you're going to give me $100,000. I'm going to use that $100,000 to operate my business. I'm going to pay you a percentage of my loan back to you. And then at a certain date, I'm going to pay off your entire principal. That's how a bond works. But I'm struggling. I'm in a war-torn country. My bonds don't have a whole lot of credit. They don't have a whole lot of sticking power. So what I'm going to do is instead of 4%, I'm going to give you 12%. And then I'm going to try to pay it off as fast as possible because I don't want to pay you 12% for 25 years. That's how it works. How it's working in the Ukraine right now is, and this is an accusation, this is my opinion, so I don't want to be sued for this from these investors. But this is how it works, in my opinion, is that there's a coordinated effort between Washington, D.C., big conglomerates, major traders, major investors, and they'll know when the next funding trigger is set because none of that stuff is private. I've been to DC, I've been to New York, I've been to all these places, I've been in a lot of rooms. Most things are orchestrated well ahead of time with big dollars. They are orchestrated years in advance. So what'll happen is, let's just give you a scenario as to what's happening with Ukrainian junk bonds. This gas company is going to say, we need $15 million or $1 billion. We need $1 billion to stay in business. Because if we go out of business, then these poor Ukrainians won't have any gas and we can't buy it from Russia anymore because we're fighting with Russia. So they're going to say, we need $1 billion loan. I'm going to call it a junk bond. And when they issue that out, American and European investors, they're buying that bond. And that bond is highly risky. That bond definitely doesn't fit their investment mandate or their portfolio style. But what they do know ahead of time is they do know Nancy Pelosi and her friends are going to negotiate with Chuck Schumer, and they're going to make up a whole new funding mechanism and be able to send $3 billion over to Ukraine. So when that happens, they're going to get 10, 12% interest paid every month while they're waiting. And as soon as that money comes into the Ukrainian government, they're giving it to the gas company or the utility company, and the utility company is paying off their bonds at a massive premium plus interest, canceling the bond and issuing new junk bonds awaiting the next influx, which they're now requesting. Zelensky is talking peace for the first time in a while. While he's talking out of one side of his mouth, he's using drone attacks in Moscow and bombing inside of Russia. So big lies happening in that area. But one of the most fascinating things is as soon as this information was broke, they now request another $50 billion from G7 companies. So this is how the wealthy stay wealthy. This is how the elite maintain the elite. They don't care if you don't have gas in your home. They don't care if you lose your job. They need their next $100 million payout, and it's coming from Ukraine, and it's always come from Ukraine, and Ukraine funding needs to stop. Now, let's get into some of the interesting stuff that's happening in politics. Politics right now is just fascinating. It's boring and it's fascinating at the same time. I'm trying to stay away from politics as much as possible. I think our pathway is pretty well mapped out. And to be quite frank with you, American politics are the new global bread and circus. Most of what you're seeing there is completely scripted, already known, and it's just a gigantic narrative changing mechanism. The media is part of politics. They are the narrators. They are the ones who tell the story. And we are watching stories that drop our jaws and stories that make us laugh. So one of the ones that should have dropped your jaw yesterday, was Mark Zuckerberg formally admitting that he rigged the 2024 or 2020 election by withholding Hunter Biden's laptop. He expressed that he was under major pressure from the U.S. government to censor all over his platform. He's part of the U.S. government. He is protected by the U.S. government, and he donates a massive amount of money to the lobbyists. Is this somebody who's capitulating? Is this somebody who's had a transformation of soul? Are we watching a Saul of Tarsus go from the Christian slayer to Paul, who wrote the New Testament? Or are we simply watching a criminal trying to save his neck? Or are we watching someone who has always been behind the scenes waiting to release this information at the right time? I have no idea, but those are pretty good ways to think critically about the situation. He has now said he will not do Zuckerbucks again and fund the election. He should have been in jail the first time he did that. He's not in jail. Although I will say that Facebook is one of the only social media companies out there that even has any open source apps, which is kind of a silver lining in the middle of very difficult times. Jack Dorsey, who most people hate, I have been saying this for about a year and a half. Watch what people do, don't watch what they say. We are living in a scripted environment. I believe that the 2020 election was a gigantic honeypot, and we're watching it all play out from here through this election and maybe through 2025. But Jack Dorsey, who was the head of Twitter, he was the CEO of Twitter, in name only for quite some time, to be frank. He's been working on Bitcoin projects and decentralized mining pools and social media stuff and decentralizing everything he can. I watch what people do, and anybody who's building decentralized, uncontrollable, uncensorable platforms is somebody who's doing the right thing, if they're doing it right. I don't know Jack Dorsey, but I've always said watch him. I think he's someone who's in disguise, who knows where a lot of bodies are buried. And Twitter was certainly complacent in the 2020 election rigging, and there's certainly something to it. But I always say gray hats, right, and people right in the middle, the double agents are the ones that win information wars, and we are certainly in an information war. But he came out a couple of weeks ago talking about how he knew thoroughly and explained how we live in a matrix that is completely manipulated by the narrative. He came out again today, and I was lucky. Last night I said, I bet he's going to be the next one of these social media guys to spill the beans. I think in the next couple of days, he's probably going to do an interview with someone and talk about the ways he was pressured by the U.S. government. And we'll call it the U.S. government. It's not. This is the CIA the entire way through. The NSA and the CIA, they actually control this stuff. And they're the ones who put pressure on people because they're the ones who can actually bury them. So I would assume that he's the next one to come out and say that he was pressured by these people. And put yourself in their position. If you were pressured by the CIA, you'd probably do what they told you to do either way. And I have no sympathy or empathy in my heart, but I try to look at things from a different perspective, and I try not to get emotionally involved with people I don't know. I mean, that's another simple way to look through life. But that's certainly interesting. And this kind of ties in with Pavel Durov from Telegram, who I love Telegram. I think it's a great platform. I think it's completely full of crazy people, which I love all these crazy people the best because we're the truth tellers. So most of the normal people in the world don't even know what Telegram is because a lot of the content on there is contrary to what they are told and what they believe and what makes them comfortable. So all of us crazy people who've been on Telegram for quite some time, most of what's happening right now isn't a shock or a surprise to us because it has been a bastion of free speech. It's definitely been infiltrated by people all throughout the platform, but the platform itself is actually a really good research platform. It's very easy to find information and share it in half the time you would on any of the other platforms. But Pavel was just arrested in France. He was lured by Macron, who told us that his arrest had nothing to do with politics. And the first thing that came into mind, he also said that his wife was a woman. So don't trust what Macron says. That thing he's married to is definitely not a female. And along this pathway, he lured Pavel overseas from Russia to France for a dinner meeting. He was arrested on the landing strip. He was there with a honeypot social media influencer, crypto coach, she called herself. If anybody's called a crypto coach, I would probably avoid those people. um, for multiple reasons. But he was there, and now he's charged with 12 crimes, being complicit in 12 crimes. He's not charged with the crime. He's charged with assisting the crime because he owns the platform. And there's plenty of funny things going around the internet. I don't want to take credit for the humor, but it's kind of like arresting the CEO of BIC because criminals use handwritten notes to exchange information and deal drugs. The guy who made the pen, it's like blaming a gun manufacturer for a mass shooting. It's the same kind of irony or tyranny that we're seeing right now. And he's in prison. He's in jail right now, and he's actually going through a tribunal, which is far more nefarious, especially for control purposes, for a really tyrannical government. But some of the interesting things in here, one thing to note from this is that what you're going to watch moving forward is you're going to watch Apple and Google and all these other companies start cutting off your ability to download Telegram. They're going after Telegram because it's an encrypted chat app. So you can certainly use it for social media purposes like I do with Critical Race Theory on Telegram if you want to follow me on there. You can use it as a social media platform or a group chat, but most people use it for one-on-one encrypted chat like they use the app Signal. Signal for sure is not as protected as you think it is, and Telegram actually has been. So Pavel for many years has told governments to get bent. In fact, he had the Democrats during January 6th. The Democrats sent him a letter demanding he gave up all the information of Republicans and patriots who were putting information out about January 6th, which would be probably 50% of the people who are on this live right now. He didn't respond. 2 weeks later, he was sent a letter from the Republican Party saying, never release this information. That's free speech. And that was actually enlightening to hear that. That was a good thing coming from them. But he also, this app has been around for a very long time. It's been around since well before 2011 and before it blew up. And the only reason Telegram blew up is because we got kicked off YouTube, we got kicked off Twitter, we got kicked off Parler. They shut Parler down. We all ended up on Telegram, Miraculously, which actually has a great voice chat feature, which is now called a Twitter space. That's where they got that from, is from Telegram. And this platform was around much longer than that. It's been around, I think, since 2010 or 2009. And it was used primarily around the world for one-on-one encrypted messaging. Now, Mike Benz, who put a report out about this immediately on Saturday, Mike Benz has been over target for just about everything that he's said for about 2 years. And he specifically talked about the attempted coup in Belarus, that Telegram was the messaging app that the intel agents used to orchestrate that failed coup. Also used in many different areas of civil unrest. So there's plenty of evidence that could be decrypted and be very incriminating for very powerful people. That's why he's in jail. Now, he is being accused of everything from dealing drugs and terrorism all the way down through child pornography and sex trafficking. He is not being accused of those things himself. And I don't know the guy, and I can't verify. I'm not with him 24 hours a day, so I can't verify he doesn't do that. But he's being charged for that happening on his platform. Again, going after the gun manufacturer because somebody got shot in a 7-Eleven 4,000 miles away. It's the same thing that's happening right now, but it's also happening in France, and there's tremendous amounts of information. And a gentleman named James Lee on Twitter, if you don't know who he is, I would follow James Lee. He's very much like Ian Carroll. These are guys who make really good 2 to 3, sometimes 5-minute videos that really work through different things that are happening right now. And James Lee put out a very good video today that basically walked you through how Israel is involved in the silencing. So here's Israel putting their hands on the rest of the world again, controlling everything. And this video also has an interview from I forgot what his position was, but a gentleman who said, I'm very hesitant to tell you that Zionists are the ones who are shutting down free speech. And I'm especially afraid to say that in France because you'll end up in court. And then James said immediately, or jail. So people are being imprisoned for free speech and their rights all throughout the world. This is not a new thing. One of the things I think put Pavel on the radar is the fact he did an interview with Tucker Carlson. I don't think anybody had ever seen him before in an interview. And he stated on there, I don't have any assets. I have 100 million in cash and 100 million in Bitcoin, and I just travel the world and I love free speech. He put himself on the radar, kind of reminded me of Denzel Washington wearing the fur coat in The American Gangster. And now he is there. So again, not political. Macron says this. By the way, when he was arrested, Telegram shot up to the #2 most downloaded app in the world. So if you want like the silver lining or are people fighting back, the answer is absolutely 100% yes, because when they try to shut down free speech, everybody runs to the place that provided it. Maybe too late. And there are certainly other options out there. Brighteon has a decentralized social media. Nostr is a decentralized social media. I've opened up accounts in these too. They're very clunky. They're not user friendly. They're run by keys and not a password because they're decentralized. You're essentially running a node on them. They're for the technologically advanced, more of your nerd operators out there, and not a lot of activity. So a lot of people are saying, I'm going to Nostr, I'm going here. And it's a good idea, but these platforms need a tremendous amount of development. And I think that what we're watching is a global awakening to the fact that we eventually need to have decentralized social media platforms so that we can't be censored anymore and the truth can actually be given out every day all across the world. These are important things to pay attention to. Now, RFK, very interesting stuff happening with RFK. You know, he was just sued by the Democrat Party. He was a lifelong Democrat. He's a Kennedy. He's a Kennedy. He is synonymous with the Democratic Party in America. He just endorsed Trump. And before that happened, a Kennedy was not allowed to run as a Democrat. Then he was not given Secret Service protection 3 different times. Then he was given Secret Service protection and it was taken away from him when he started speaking about Trump positively. And then in the middle of that, he was sued. He was sued by every state that was trying to remove him from the ballot. So before he stepped aside and joined Trump, the Democrats were trying to remove him from the ballot in all the swing states and other states. RFK came out and said he had to spend $10 million to defend himself and keep himself on the ballot. Again, on the ballot. Now, after he's come out and basically said, our food is killing us, which is true, that we have seed oils that are creating everything from sunburns to degenerative disease to hormone problem, all true. I really think the big kicker for him today was saying that if, as part of Trump's administration, he wants to ban chemtrails. Now, anyone who knows me for any period of time knows that I look at the sky all day as soon as I step outside, and there are chemtrails everywhere, and it's humorous to me that people still go, oh, that's just a contrail. You know, it's just from an airplane. Well, then why is it still up, up top here for the next 4.5 to 5 hours until it spreads out and falls in our water and food? Or they'll say the best thing about chemtrails, the best denial of truth about chemtrails has always been the Mockingbird media campaign 3 years ago to tell you that they had found a new type of cloud called a cone cloud. God does not work in straight lines, especially in the sky. You've never seen a straight line cloud in your life. That's a chemtrail filled with awful chemicals, especially heavy metals that create dementia and Alzheimer's, which are at an all-time high. So RFK came out and said, I'm going to help end chemtrails. And now all of a sudden, the Democrats are suing to keep him on the ballot. So the same people who tried to remove him from the ballot and ran him up a $10 million legal fee are now running up his legal fees again, forcing him to stay on the ballot in Michigan and Wisconsin. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, you really can't. So he actually teamed up. Trump just announced that he and Tulsi Gabbard will be part of his transition team. I'm not a political expert, so I don't know what they do on a transition team. I have my own assumptions, and I think that I'd probably be accurate in some of them, but I'm not an expert. But they're on the transition team. RFK, Elon, Tulsi, these are all huge, lifelong Democrats, as was Donald Trump, by the way. He was a lifelong Democrat. But as soon as that happened, 200 Republicans, the establishment Republicans, endorsed Kamala Harris. This is people from the Bush family. And boy, are my Texan people going to hate me, but George W. Bush and his father are 2 of the most corrupt people that have ever existed in office, ranging from CIA, John F. Kennedy, all the way through the assassination attempt of Ronald Reagan, 9/11. These people have had their hands in all these huge nefarious affairs, and they're now coming out and fully endorsing Kamala Harris, who has no qualifications, received no votes from anyone, completely circumvented the democratic process to be installed as the next Marxist puppet in this country. So you sue a guy to keep him on the get him off a ballot. You sue him to put him back on and keep him on. You endorse the Marxist with your Republican heroes. Are you not seeing what's happening here? I mean, America, wake up. This is an orchestrated event. This is a controlled narrative that is designed to provoke emotions. Don't get frustrated. Don't get angry. Just get focused in your life and focus on what counts. Get your money right. Get your house in order. Get your prayer life together. Get your love for your children together. And don't give an inch to stupid people that are trying to push dumb things down your throat. This is super important. So the Trump transition team is now comprised of a lot of converted Democrats. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. Harris, on the other hand, whatever her name is, she has now reversed her stand. All of a sudden, so 200 establishment Republicans, keep him on, take him off, keep him on the ballot. Now you have Harris saying she is not for EVs. She doesn't want electric vehicles. Those are silly, you silly Americans. Don't you remember that I didn't say that years ago? I meant to say free choice and combustion engines. Oh, also, we need a border wall. So Kamala Harris is now the forefront of border wall security after being the border czar and allowing 21 million people in here to rape and kill innocent Americans. The Democrat Party is revolting. There was a report put out by Rick Grinnell earlier today saying who was in Trump's cabinet. I think he was the head of information or intelligence for the nation. So many connections. And he basically said all of his Democrat connections right now are in an upheaval and they are trying to push Harris out. This is fun to watch, guys. This is literally fun. For me, it's fun to watch because I could care less and I think the outcome is certain. However, Trump and Harris finally agreed to a debate on September 10th. That is, I think, 9 days before his sentencing of one trial in New York. And again, today, Jack Smith reiterated year-old charges for Trump's supposed 2020 election interference. I don't know how a guy interferes with an election that he supposedly lost unless he actually won and you're trying to keep that information from people learning about it. So you could put him in jail and he would never have a chance to speak about it or to have evidence shown. And you would continue to file these lawsuits over and over again. But what they did basically was shorten the charges down 10 pages. It's the same exact lawsuit, which, by the way, in between the original filing of the lawsuit and the filing of the lawsuit today, the Supreme Court came out and gave presidents immunity. So this entire court case is a scam because presidents actually have an immunity for what Trump did. But there are so many good things happening right now, and they're happening in the states. I've said this since I've been online. Is like, you can sit around online and tweet stuff out and or you can go out and help families and you can serve your local community and you can get your local politics in order because that's actually what matters in your life. But local politics are winning right now. The state of Texas just removed 1 million ineligible voters, illegals primarily, from the voter roll. Pennsylvania is working on this. There's 2 other states that are now cleaning their voter rolls. North Carolina is now suing their election board to remove illegals from their voter roll. This is the information I was talking about. A couple of weeks ago, I was not excited for the election because it was certain at that point, certain to me anyway, that they would cheat and probably claim a victory before America shut it all down and fix the problem, which still may need to happen. But now we're watching changes in the election system. This needs to be, we're running out of time. We're 70 days away from an election. But North Carolina is suing their election board to remove illegals. Texas has removed 1 million. Louisiana really is doing some good stuff out there. They actually just demanded that their DMV gives the Governor Jeff Landry, I don't know him either, and I don't really get into the idolatry of people. I think if you're in a political office in today's environment, I can't trust you. But it seems like Jeff Landry is doing a good job because he now has the DMV giving his office information about illegals who have driver's licenses. This is a big step. They also banned critical race theory from K through 12, and we are looking at Detroit. The RNC is now suing the city of Detroit, I think the DNC, if not the city of Detroit or their election board, for hiring 7 times more Democrats as to be poll watchers in 2024's election. If you remember, and you could not have seen this on TV because they didn't show it, Detroit was by far the most overtly corrupt city when it came to the 2020 election rig. They were putting up cardboard signs on the windows so people couldn't even see in as to what they were doing. There's some nonsense happening in Georgia. I'm going to go through that tomorrow. I haven't had time to dig through the specifics to be intelligent about it tonight. Wisconsin, aside from forcing RFK to stay on the ballot, which will hurt both candidates, it will hurt both of them. Probably hurt Trump more than Harris because that otherwise they would just let him remove himself from the actual campaign. But Brookfield and New Berlin, Wisconsin, have now banned ballot drop boxes. Mail-in voting needs to end because we're watching the buildup of the next mail-in voting campaign. Period. Another thing, the United States Postal Service is being sued for 2020 election fraud for a shipment of ballots that went from New York to Pennsylvania on October 20th, 2020. This is not a new story. The gentleman who drove the truck blew the whistle the next morning on TikTok or on Instagram, and the video went viral in 2020. I remember it clear as day myself, but now this guy's story is being heard, and they're actually suing the post office, the USPS, because they are gearing up for the next mail-in ballot election rig, and here's how they're doing it. First of all, before I get into this, James O'Keefe, whether you like him or not, and the O'Keefe Media Group, whether you like them or not, are doing some great things. You know, some of them maybe setups, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. He's doing undercover video, using people to go undercover with powerful people from BlackRock to government positions to Pfizer, and they're spilling the beans on a date, right? They're using Tinder or whatever to set up a date where people feel like they're just trying to score that evening, and they don't care if they have to keep their mouth shut about work. A few drinks later, they tell a lot of information. One of them was with a Department of Justice lawyer who admitted that the FDA made a big mistake by running a misinformation campaign against ivermectin during the pandemic. Now, this is good information because it's true, but at the same time, someone needs to take action on this. Now, of course, the guy could have been drunk and full of it and lying. That's certainly something to look through. But we certainly need to do more digging on this as a society, as a government, as a policing entity to be able to maintain some form of integrity in this nation, because there were probably millions of people who died who would have been saved had they had access to ivermectin, or would have tried ivermectin, maybe, and still died if it wasn't demonized on every TV station. They didn't want you to get treatments. I know this firsthand. I know firsthand that the FDA was not looking for treatments. They were only looking for vaccines, and they already had them ready to go. The patents were available. They were already produced. I know this firsthand. But at least someone is leaking that information 4 years too late, but never too late for the truth to come out. Because what's happening right now, there's a few things that are shocking to me, and this is not one of them. So in the last 6 days, we have now seen 4 new viral outbreaks. So we know that it's Marxist season in America because there's all kinds of new bioweapons being released against the American people. We all obviously heard about monkeypox. That's been around for a while. One thing that's interesting is they're putting up these monkey statues in places. There's a 90-foot tall bronze statue of a monkey god, a Hindu monkey god in Houston. And that happened right before the monkeypox randomly broke free. And there's another statue of a really weird, look it up online. There's another really weird monkey statue with, looks like it has pox all over it and a penis, which is very strange. But we're watching these, maybe they're symbols of what's to come. But now we have Triple E, a new mosquito-borne Triple E virus that's out there that's in New Hampshire. 30 people in New Hampshire have it. An entire town in Massachusetts has self-quarantine. Think of the brainwashing that's happened in America, where an entire town of people, after going through 2020, losing most of their sovereignty and most of their money, that will self-quarantine because the government tells them that there's another disease. But there is one. It's called Triple E. It's in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, apparently. We've heard West Nile virus is now in 33 states, not 34, not 32, 33 states. So imagine who's behind that. But the West Nile virus, actually can tell you that is not a fake disease. I did have an Uber driver in Los Angeles who told me he had West Nile virus, and for 30 minutes completed his conversation, the entire 30 minutes, telling me about every symptom and how bad it was. And it sounded horrible, and I hope you're okay. If I ever see you in life again, I'll pray for you. I hope you're okay. But West Nile is a real thing, comes from mosquitoes. And there's another mosquito-borne virus out there that I don't know how to pronounce. It looks like Oropuchi is how you'd pronounce it. That just came out a couple hours ago. So you have monkeypox, Triple E, Oropuchi, and West Nile virus. 3 of those 4 are born of mosquitoes. And if you remember back to 2022, and if you didn't know this, you can easily look it up. In 2022, Bill Gates cut a deal with somebody in the state of Florida to be able to release 90 million mosquitoes who had been genetically altered and modified to deliver vaccines to people through mosquitoes. So this is not a coincidence. This is coercion, and it's happening in America again right before election season. I fully believe that there will be another strain or illness that comes out in the next couple of weeks The intensity of the media will really pick up. And more importantly, they're adding to the fire. I can tell you in Fort Worth, Texas, right down the street from me right now, that there are 4 different neighborhoods that are being sprayed with neurological poison called pesticides to kill mosquitoes because there's one person who had West Nile virus. There's now 9 people who have it, and they've been spraying pesticides, again, neurological destroying agents, into people's homes and ranches and water sources because 9 people got sick. So whether it's going to be vaccine side effects, whether it's going to be neurological poisoning coming from these sprays, or whether it's actual diseases coming from mosquitoes made by Bill Gates, one way or another, we're going to find out what the end game is. And it's just ironic that we're 2 months out from an election while all this is happening. So take that for what it's worth. And aside from this, the funniest news of the day is, is the Democrats are now working with the FEC to have X, or Twitter, I just can't call it X, it's Twitter, to have Twitter shut down Grok, which is their AI platform. Why? Because the pictures that Grok is making are mean and offensive. I mean, the people who run this country, the people that people are scared of, are afraid of mean pictures that are being made by AI on X. That's the reality of the world. You are dealing with the most cowardly people, the most cowardly tyrants the world has ever seen. They are literally trying to ban an AI platform because the AI platform makes mean tweets. I mean, these are the most offensive people that have ever walked the planet. They don't mind if grown men are having gay sex on the street next to 3-year-old kids in San Francisco. That's totally fine. But a mean image made by Grok and sent out through a Twitter account, I mean, that's end of the world stuff. You're going to have to shut it down. You're going to have to shut it down because we don't like when you make fun of us. And we certainly don't like when you tell naked men to get away from small children because that makes you mean. Do you see how this all works now? The mean ones continually tell you you're mean, and they put this mystic guilt upon you that comes from somewhere, and they just continually jam it down your throat. Now, 2 things of concern before we get into Q&A and some of the topics I see on Telegram that we can go through tonight. I'll keep it on for a little bit. Binance just allowed Israel, to seize all Palestinian assets on their exchange. So if you are from Palestine and you had crypto or Bitcoin on Binance, you no longer have it because Israel wants to freeze it. This is not how the free world works. I hate terrorism as well, more than anybody. I know more about it than most of you on here right now. I've done a lot of work in that space, a lot of information in my head about that, but I also hate tyranny. And I also hate the fact that centralized exchanges make themselves out to be safe havens for you to store your money. So here's a warning. If you have crypto or Bitcoin, totally different things, on an exchange, if it's on Coinbase or Binance or Kraken, get it off there as fast as possible unless you're a trader. If you are somebody who's trading, good luck to you. That's a hard business. And don't use leverage. $110 million was evaporated from the crypto market in 60 minutes today because leverage trades end up wrecking people. That's just how it works. Unless you are a professional, you're going to get wrecked using leverage. You're also going to get wrecked in that space if you keep your crypto or Bitcoin on a centralized exchange. So I'll go back to Telegram and I'll go to Twitter, and then I'll go to a very serious topic at the end, and then we'll go into Q&A. But I'll go back to Telegram and Bitcoin and these exchanges. So Bitcoin, and I'll be happy to have a debate with anyone about decentralization. It's by far the most decentralized platform that exists today. Crypto has some decentralized attributes to it, but nonetheless, let's just call them the same thing for these purposes. So I'm a Bitcoiner, so I'm going to talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin, being a decentralized product, exists on its own. It doesn't need any governments or politicians or anything. You can use it peer-to-peer. You can use it cross-border. You can do whatever you want. The way that it gets centralized, the way that a government would centralize control of something that's decentralized or uncensorable, like Telegram, the way that they do it is through on and off ramps. So Bitcoin, just like any other structure out there, faces pressure and threat from technological and bureaucratic tyranny. Telegram is expressing this. You're going to see Telegram go through this very quickly. So they can't control Telegram and they can't control Bitcoin. What they can control is the banks where you send money to and from. They can control exchanges who need to use KYC, know your client information, to remove your privacy. These are called on and off ramps. On and off ramps are the best that they can do to centralize crypto or to centralize Bitcoin or to censor Telegram. So the on and off ramps for Telegram are the App Store, Google Play, the places where you can download it and use it. I would anticipate within the next 5 to 7 days that either Apple or Google will announce that they're going to start delisting Telegram, which is now the number 2 social media app. They do not care about revenue. They do not care about users. These people all work together. So you're going to watch the same thing happen to Telegram that's been happening to Bitcoin, which is control through centralized on and off ramps. And Binance just showed its, and by the way, Binance, different story, but Binance just showed its hand by being forced by Israel to seize Palestinian assets. I still do not understand bureaucratically how that's legal, and I don't think it actually matters. What matters is that it happened and we need to learn a lesson from it. And that lesson is never leave your Bitcoin or your crypto on a centralized exchange if you plan on having it in the future. That's the lesson to take. Now, last topic I'm going to run through really quickly because it's fascinating. There's a very good podcast out there called Redacted. It's on YouTube, it's still on YouTube. Redacted does a very good job. I forgot the host's name. He seems very cool to me. However, he did a 12-minute segment on volcanic activity in Italy. And this is not a joke. There's some things in here like his mentioning of Neanderthals and things like that. So historians and the awake people will kind of go, oh, it's funny. But what's not funny is that the volcanic activity and the pressures that they're reading within this volcanic region are really horrific signs. So most of the world doesn't know this. I'll send the link to Laura tonight, and I'll try to have her put the link to his video on there. I'm not trying to say that it's true or say that it's false. I found it very interesting and informative. And nonetheless, we should all be prepared. There's been more volcanic activity on planet Earth in the past 4 years than we saw in the last 50. So it wouldn't surprise me if one of these very large volcanic regions is about to blow and most of the world will never hear about it. So that's all I'm going to cover with it tonight. I think Redacted did a very good job on that segment. I'd like to tip my cap to you if you ever watch the show. I really enjoy watching some segments from you. And that's really where I'm at for the show today. So I'm going to go on to Telegram. I'm going to pull up some of these topics you all want me to talk about and try to rip through them as fast as I can because the kids are going to bed. I love y'all and thank you all for being here, but I love them more and I can't wait to see them. Bitcoin, I'm going to have to push that off till tomorrow. I will do that tomorrow. I'll make sure I set aside 20 minutes to thoroughly explain it. I'm just running on a time frame right now. And so definitely tomorrow, I have men's group for ministry tomorrow. Possibly Thursday or maybe mid-afternoon. I'll put it out on Telegram and Twitter to let you all know, so just pay attention. I'll either do the Bitcoin thing tomorrow or I will do it on Thursday. But nonetheless, I promise you I will do a little workshop with you. I'll dedicate the entire time to that. If I can't get that time, because I do run a business and things like that, we'll certainly set aside 2 hours on Saturday. Let's just do it Saturday. I'll guarantee it Saturday. I'll try to get it done Thursday. Best I can do there. It's going to be 20 or 30 minutes for me to do that and take Q&A. For that to happen. What is the future of the dollar? Possible timeline of the future of the dollar. Here's the crazy thing. The future of the dollar is certain and uncertain at the same time. I love Bitcoin. I love gold and silver. I love hard assets. But there will always be national currency. I can't see a time where national currencies go away. Maybe there'll be, if we have a one world global currency, that's not the position we want to be in as Americans. We're definitely in the wrong spot. But I think that the dollar, and I've been saying this for a while, I think the dollar is going to take a 35 to 45% hit at some point. That could be next year or 2 years down the road. But I think point number 9 or 13 on Trump's 20-point plan for his next presidency is to secure the dollar as the global reserve currency. So I think that'll be done with a combination of gold and silver and Bitcoin to back the dollar. And that's really the only way. So the Bitcoin thing will help you understand why I think that. I don't think metals-backed currency will work in the future. We're just too far technologically advanced to use clunky old things like that. They do have tremendous value, but again, a precious metal-backed currency has never succeeded in all of human history. That is a big problem there. So I don't know what the future of the dollar is. I think the dollar is always going to be around. I know you hear the doom and gloom stories because a lot of these doom and gloom stories are always trying to sell you a crypto that'll take the place of the dollar. I don't think anything will replace the dollar. I think Trump is going to make certain of that, but the dollar will be different. That's what I think. What are my thoughts on, are we near end time? We're always near end times. Times begin and times end all the time. I'll certainly do another show on that, probably a Saturday or Sunday show, and go through biblically how I think that right now we're in 1st or 2nd Thessalonians. You can really see 1st and 2nd Thessalonians playing out right now. And again, I think my pastor says it the best. I'm not on the planning committee. I'm on the welcoming committee. So if we're at the end times and Jesus is returning, my door is open, and any treasure I have is yours, King. Like, that's really kind of where I am on that. But I believe we're living in the Third Testament. That doesn't mean we need to have the end times as prophesied in Revelation. And we could be living in the end times that was written in the book of Enoch. So we don't really know. I don't really know, but it's always a good question, Jen. Difficult one to do when I only have 11 minutes before the kids go to bed. Agenda 2025, look it up online. It's the Heritage Foundation. It's not hard to dig through. Trump doesn't endorse it. I would say I've read through it once. I'm not an expert on Agenda 2025 or Project 2025. I am studying Agenda 47, Project 47. His actual plan is great. But the Heritage Foundation, that was a purely conservative think tank putting together how they could immediately correct America, which is not a good way to go. There's going to be a slow integration going from this lunacy we live in now into a conservative area where people are, intelligent and thoughtful again. Carol Ann, I'm so sorry, can't get in Bitcoin. I'm definitely going to get that. A Bitcoin 101, I'm going to explain it in simple terms. I just simply haven't had time to do that. We're running out of time tonight. Yes, Palestine applied for BRICS today, and their assets were seized on Binance. So we're certainly still in a punch counter punch environment. That's certainly an example of punch counter punch. My thoughts on BRICS are that BRICS has been around. BRICS was started. Here's the reality. Bitcoin started January 3rd, 2009. BRICS started in April 12th, I think, 2009. So around 2009, this financial war truly began. I don't think BRICS is scary at all to the U.S. environment. Certainly scary to the dollar, but they all still have the U.S. dollar. In fact, when countries, get rid of their own currency, they all re-dollarize. And the dollar's not going anywhere because stable coins are buying up our treasuries and our dollar. They are the new vacuum for the demand for treasuries and the U.S. dollar. So I don't see any big hit. It'd be great to have competition out there for currencies. That's certainly something Milton Friedman and Hayek and these guys talked about many years ago, that we need something sneaky that can't be touched by the government. I think that's Bitcoin. And then we also need competitive currencies and not a global dominated currency. So BRICS out there, I think what they're doing is great. I think it's going to hurt America if it is what they claim it to be and not what I think it is, because I think it's a scare tactic to realign the global order. But we'll see in the end. I don't have a prediction for that. And even if I did, it wouldn't matter. Will California get any relief from Newsom, Pelosi, Kabbalah, and Schiff? It doesn't look like that at the moment. I don't know California politics anymore, but it's the most, I'm from Chicago and then California. I've lived in the two most, if I just move to Philadelphia really soon, I'll live in the three most politically corrupt areas of the world. I hate to be the one to tell you that between now and this election, there'll be no relief for Californians. But I think in the end, when we restructure things, we'll certainly have some relief and fairness in all states. How do I find a VIX ETF? Difficult situation for me to be in, because technically giving you a recommendation, I'm a former registered money manager, financial advisor. And if I give you an individual stock recommendation, which is what an ETF would be, I put myself in a vulnerable position. But I will tell you, Fidelity.com has a really good breakdown on what an ETF is, what the VIX is, their VIX offering. I think there probably are at least 15, if not 20 VIX ETFs out there. Some of them are 2x long. You can look into those. But call your financial advisor or get online and start looking on there. I can't give you individual investment recommendations that are regulated. And ETFs are regulated. VIX is regulated. If you have an account with the Commodities Board, with the CBOE, or any commodities trading firm in the world, you can just buy the VIX direct, but most people don't have that. The ETFs are very easy to research and find. Just Just search VIX ETFs, and there's all kinds of great analysis and information for you to determine. I don't want to give you a right or wrong recommendation. I don't want the praise or the craze. I don't want either one of those. But I am buying the VIX again. I have bought the VIX again. I'll be buying it again tomorrow morning. The VIX does well when the markets drop, and that's where most money, they're reading the options. And what the VIX does is it reads the conglomerate of shorting versus long options that are available. It's a great way to be able to counteract a plummet in the market space itself. So Dan, I hope that helps you, as well as Andrea D. Mosquitoes, speculate, best can be done. What I run into in a few weeks in Massachusetts. So yeah, somebody on here right now, Hayes Gray, Hayes is letting me know that this is real in Massachusetts. They are voluntarily shutting down their own cities. And Gen 316, hopefully you're on here. I'm not under Critical Rice Theory on Rumble or YouTube. I'm under the Rice Report. Let me see if there are any questions we can answer at the end here on the chat. Hey guys, all of you guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you being here. It's so much more fun to do this live than it is canned up in a room with in between my kids' 2 bedrooms and the guest bedroom. And it's nice to have some of you here. The other monkey, oh, there we go. The other monkey statue that was placed is in New Orleans, and they replaced a statue of Robert E. Lee for is that the one with the male part, the monkey with the penis? These are just creepy things that occultic people do before an outbreak. By the way, there are Baphomet statues in every major city around the world, including Vatican City. So these statues are stupid and silly to us, but they mean something to these occultic people who kind of run the world. Not kind of, they actually run the world. Gay Royal. I'm in Georgia and I don't understand what is going on in the state elections board. It's nuts. I don't either. The best I can understand what's happening in Georgia is that 3 brave people put in some really good work in the election board. They determined basically that, I think 170,000 votes didn't exist, or the images weren't there, making it invalid. And now Kemp or Raffensperger is now under pressure, probably from the deep state, to shut them down and get them removed from the election board. It's kooky what's happening. This happened like a day after Trump just spoke very kindly of Kemp. And then the next day he said, I'm kicking off the guys who've actually done what the American people want them to do because somebody else doesn't want them on that board. That's the best of what I understand. I'll certainly read a little more about it tonight and see if I can get you some more information on that. Chemtrails in Tampa. We had one here today, and I saw lightning in the middle of the sun today. Also, if you're on Telegram or Twitter, I'm going to post a picture. I saw a quarter of a rainbow today. So we had chemtrails and then a bunch of these big clouds. And then about 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock, I looked up and there was just this little sliver of rainbow in the sky. That's not a normal thing, and it's probably from the chemicals they spray in the air, or something we don't understand as human beings. What is the recourse now that they're admitting this? I don't know. Carol, you're asking the question of the century. What happens to these corrupt people once they're ratted out or tell the truth on their own? The historical answer has been nothing. But I do think times are changing. I think that a new Trump administration, I'm a black and white guy. He did say he'd drain the swamp. He didn't. I understand why he didn't, because I don't think he understood just how corrupt this nation was. Think of where we would be if Trump was not in office. If Hillary Clinton was in office, I wouldn't be on this live right now, and you wouldn't be watching it. We'd probably be in internment camps right now, re-education camps. So I'm always thankful for that win, but a lot of work to do in this country, and a lot of it's being revealed. So just be patient with it as time goes on. Trump, RFK, and Tulsi were all once Democrats. Yeah, that's fascinating to me to watch. I've heard Telegram is off Apple already. Joel, that may be the case. I've been running kids around and taking kids to boxing and making my normal steak and egg dinner tonight. Picked the wrong time in economic history to go on the steak and eggs diet. It's like the 2 most expensive things at the grocery store. But man, do I feel amazing. I would highly recommend going on a steak and egg diet for a couple of weeks if you don't have energy and maybe your brain isn't functioning right, or if you're getting ready to exercise. Really do that. Water, steak, and eggs, just this kind of the stuff cavemen live on. You're going to feel great a few days later. They've been lying to you about cholesterol and red meat. Red meat increases testosterone, by the way. It's why they don't want you to eat, and told you not to eat red meat for all those years, because you can't have men with testosterone and control a nation filled with men. My pharmacist has West Nile. We're in Mississippi. The world is up. You're absolutely correct, Jeannie. West Nile's real. Like, I can tell you that. I've met somebody who had it. I know it exists and it's real. COVID existed, right? It just was the flu. They just overdid the propaganda to create fear. And there's absolutely no question in my mind that they are trying to create fear right now. And some of us will probably go through some illness for that. I mean, I'm not going to totally disregard that. Carol, yes, it is considered the carnivore diet, but I stick away from ground beef. I don't know why. I think I'd rather have the steak. But yeah, West Nile is probably going to be a real thing we have to deal with. But I think that's all. I think I got through everything you guys have. Let me check one more area here. I usually get some questions here. Yeah, sorry guys. Name change on the show. When I started doing these podcasts, I was working for a firm and I didn't want to insult our client base by calling it Critical Rice Theory, which I still think is an awesome name. That's why I haven't changed it on Telegram. And I don't want to be known as CRT, as CRT is being destroyed. So we changed it to the Rice Report. That was more of a financial podcast that when I left the firm, I got to open up the kimono a little bit. Thank you all for watching. I think I've gotten through all of our questions today except for Bitcoin. Again, if I have the time tomorrow's schedule is a little crazy. I have men's ministry at my house for a couple hours. One of the most important times of the week for me. We all need friends. We all need faith. We all need people in life to lean on. And I really try to do that as every week, as focused as I possibly can. So maybe tomorrow, definitely Thursday. If I can't do it Thursday, absolutely on Saturday. And bring your questions. I think I can explain Bitcoin to people in about 10 minutes. And I don't mind going to your crazy conspiracy theories about Bitcoin. They don't bother me at all. We actually need to talk them through so that they either are proven true, which I still can't prove them true, or they're proven wrong and we can move forward. So that's a good place to be. Until next time, guys, just focus on the simple things in life, your faith, your family, the love of your children, the time you have with them. I'm going to hop off right now because I need to go spend some time with my kids before they go to bed. I love you all. God bless you all. Thank you so much for being here. God bless this country. We'll see you again tomorrow sometime, whether it's early afternoon or in the evening. It may just be a half an hour tomorrow, but I certainly will walk through stuff. I'm going to read a little bit on Georgia and Trump's sentencing. I think those are important things to dig through. And any questions you have at all throughout the day on Telegram or Twitter, just hit me up, let me know. A lot of times when you guys share these topics with me, they're things that I either overlooked or didn't know. And I love to learn, so I'll certainly dig into it and call people and see what I can do to get you information to help you out, because that's the whole purpose of spending this time together. So until next time, I'm Eric Rice. This is the Rice Report Live. God bless you all. God bless this nation, and we will see you next time. Have a good one, everybody.